Hey, a very good afternoon, everyone. So apologies that I'll be delivering the training session in English. Okay, so my name is Dju-Lyn and I represent Clarivate as a regional solution consultant. And I think some of you might have attended my previous training sessions, both on-site before the pandemic as well as online in the past few years. So for today's session, I want to thank the library for organizing this for all the researchers and students. And what I'll be sharing with you will be some tools, actually two platforms that you can utilize as a researcher to help you to be create more impactful research. Okay, so the first one will be Web of Science, and the second will be journal citation reports. So just to give you a quick overview of what each of these databases are, so for Web of Science, it is ultimately a tool that you can use as a researcher to identify literature. So you're able to identify research papers to read, important research to use as part of your reference. For journal citation reports, it will be a tool that you use to evaluate a journal, so to make some decisions about where to publish. Okay, so dependent on your, it will help you in deciding on your choice of journal to publish your research. Okay, so I'll take about 90 minutes or so, and through today's session, if you have any questions, feel free to put those questions into the Q&A or the chat, and I'll be able to look at the questions and answer as we go along. Okay, if we have some time at the end, I'll definitely open up for questions as well. So let us begin. All right, so let's start with the Web of Science. So on the screen here, I have shared with you a kind of a research workflow that most researchers will use when they are doing some form of literature review. This could be when they are writing a review paper or when they are collecting data for their existing research. Okay, so the workflow usually starts with problem formulation. So I clearly defining what is the topic that you want to examine, then followed by a literature search. So you will search for materials, research articles, conference proceedings, books related to the topic that you have identified. Just wanted to a quick reminder, because the session is being recorded, so do remember to mute your mics, yeah? Then the third way part of the research workflow is data evaluation. So once you have collected the materials and the research articles, you want to be able to make some form of data evaluation and analysis so that you can derive some findings or interpretations. Okay. So once you have done all these steps, you will then want to put this down on paper and write your research article. And finally, then publish. So the reason why I'm sharing with you this whole workflow is because the Web of Science and the journal citation reports will help in most of these stages. So we will start with problem formulation. So the problem formulation, when you want to identify an impactful research topic, Web of Science will be the tool that you can utilize, because you need to be able to trace the whole trend of that research so that you can identify potential gaps that your own research might want to fill. Okay? And of course, literature searching can be done on the Web of Science as well. And on Web of Science platform, there are some data evaluation tools available. So you can definitely do some form of data evaluation and analysis for your data set that you have found. Then you can also continue to write your research paper with the help of EndNote, okay? And then use journal citation reports to identify a journal to publish in. So I hope this gives you a framework so that you can know what this tool can help you with in your research journey. So let's start with problem formulation and literature searching. Okay? So when you want to identify potential gaps in research so that you can know what research topic you want to do, you usually start with keyword searching, be it on Google Scholar or any other platforms. You usually start with a keyword. Now, keywords is easy, but it's not as robust as you might think, because when you are typing in a term, so let's say you're typing in a hydrogen energy, what the algorithm does is it basically searches to find whether the keyword is mentioned in the text. All right. But when you want to find research trends, and when you want to find understand the evolution of a technology, application of a technology, usually keywords might not show you the clear linkages. Now, how would you then identify this relationship or linkage between one research and another? Okay, it is through the use of a citation. So when a paper uses another article as a reference, it means that there is some form of link to the previous research. So this citation that we're talking about would help you to surface the relationship between research past and present. So the Web of Science database is essentially a citation index database that allows you to explore the relationship between multiple research papers through exploring something called the citation network. So on the screen now, I have an example of how a citation network will look like. So a citation network is based off looking at backwards and forward citation. So meaning looking back in history and looking after the article has been published so that you can see the full time frame. So let's say, for example, this one. Maybe when you first started searching for the keyword, you identified this paper as an idea sparking paper. So I will call this my Eureka paper, published in 2012. So I thought, hey, this is something that I can work on. I would like to probably find the complete information around this research and this technology so that I can see what has been done before, what has not been done yet, and what has been done but failed. Yeah. So to find those related papers, okay, from this 2012 one, the first stop is always the references used. So you would want to identify the references used by this 2012 paper by looking at the cited references. So on Web of Science, we have something called cited references. And if you click on the cited references, this will give you the articles in blue, which are the older papers. Okay, so these are papers published before 2012 that this one has used to substantiate its current research on the document. Then what happens after 2012? Because now we are in the year 2022. So perhaps you want to explore what has happened after 2012 until to date. So you can actually click through by looking at time cited so that you can find the newer papers that have been published after 2012. And the reason why you click on time cited is because then it would be clear that these papers have utilized this 2012 paper as part of their references, and perhaps this 2016 had referred to this 2014 one. So there will be all these connections that you can explore. So those in blue are older papers. Usually you explore through looking at the cited reference. So you can explore the cited references of each of these documents and trace backwards. And under time cite green documents, these are papers published after 2012. And you can then explore by clicking on time cited for each of these documents to see all the new developments. For the yellow documents, these are related records. So related records are papers that have shared similar references. So that means if, let's say, this 2012 paper has 10 references and this 1999 paper has 2 references that are shared, then these are considered related records. Okay. So when is this exploration useful? Like I mentioned, it is useful to identify research gaps, especially in topics that are not easy to define. Okay, one example is something like the Internet of Things, IoT. So IoT is a, a topic or research topic that can be applied across different areas and specializations. Okay, so usually you would want to start by identifying a certain set of documents as close as possible to your interest and start exploring that citation network. Then the second use case and the third use case are kind of related, where you are looking at older research that needs to be traced. A specific example would be like in chemistry, if you are working on chemical compounds, you want to understand the application of these compounds. Has it been used in deriving any nutraceuticals, pharmaceutical products, and so on? So where is the application of those chemical compounds? So that's why you need to trace back in history to see when the chemical compound was first discovered. Only then can you trace afterwards how it has been applied. So this is where the third use case is, where you need to identify the trends. Where is the research trend leading? Is it an up and coming interesting research topic or field of interest by the research community? So an example would be how has energy, okay, the energy research developed from coal mining all the way to now, where we want to look at clean energy and looking at things like hydrogen energy storage. Okay, so this is these are just some examples of how you would start to try and explore the citation network, and also a good way of identifying related materials. Because if you just do a keyword search, yes, you just identify a large pool of papers, but then how are they each linked to each other? The citation network is the one that will give you those answers. All right. So now let's look at what you can find on the Web of Science. So on the Web of Science platform, we have at the heart the Web of Science core collection. So the Web of Science core collection is a curated, is our own curated set of content. Okay, so I understand that many of you think that, oh, when I want to find research materials, it's best that I'm able to reach as wide as possible, as much content as possible. Okay, so that's why you always go to Google Scholar. Okay, there's nothing wrong with going to Google Scholar. There's a lot of things on Google Scholar, but there's too much. Okay, number one, there's too much, and number two, there is no check in place. Okay, why is it important to have this check? Because there are a lot of predatory content and predatory journals. So you are not able to fully understand or know which is trusted information and which is not. So that's why it is important to use a more curated set of data. And this is the Web of Science core collection. So the Web of Science core collection comprises of journals, conference proceedings, and books. And we have 4 journal indexes. So we have the Science Citation Index Expanded, Social Science, Arts and Humanities, and Emerging Sources Citation Index. And then we have the conference proceedings and the book citation index. So all these make up the Web of Science core collection. The journals have their own selection criteria, so does the conference proceedings and the books, but ultimately all content is curated and selected based on editorial integrity. So our curation is done in-house at the Web of Science by our in-house experts. So we have about 20 over editors who are working around the clock to evaluate content that wants to be indexed in Web of Science. So the evaluation of these content is done through a set of fixed criteria, and if they do not meet any of the criteria, those content will not be indexed. Okay, this helps to then make sure that the content that we index is not predatory and can be trusted by the research community. Then in terms of open access journals, open access journals are journals that are free to read, but require some form of article processing charges when it comes to authors submitting papers to publish in those journals. So when it comes to open access journals that want to be indexed in Web of Science, the curation and the selection is done by the same set of criteria. Okay. Then how is the different journal indexes different? Okay, so this chart will help to explain a little bit. So when a journal wants to be indexed in the Web of Science core collection, it will go through an evaluation process. And if it meets our 24 quality criteria, it will be indexed in the Emerging Sources Citation Index. If it meets an additional 4 more impact criteria, it will be indexed in the Science, Social Science, and Arts and Humanities Citation Index. Okay, so the Emerging Sources Citation Index is across all disciplines, but these are specialized collections. Okay. Now, once a journal gets indexed into these collections, they have to maintain the standard. If they don't maintain the standard, they can be removed from Web of Science as well. Okay. So in case anyone is interested to know about the criteria, these are the 28 criteria that we use. Okay, so we have 24 in quality and 4 in impact. And in terms of open access content, I've actually mentioned about the open access journals. So because we evaluate the open access content that is going into Web of Science, you can be sure that the journals that we index are non-predatory journals. Okay. All right. So I've covered using Web of Science citation network to find gaps for your research topic. Then I've also explained about what you can find on Web of Science. Now, the next part is actually data evaluation. So let's say you want to do some evaluation on the papers that you have just found. Okay, we have a few tools that you can make use of. So the first two here on the screen is the analyze results function and the citation reports function. So the analyze results function allows you to do some deeper analysis on the content that you have found to identify things like which subject categories or research topics it falls under, okay, so that you can identify whether there's any novel applications in terms of the research, okay, and you can also identify authors and affiliations. So these will help you to identify who are the key players or key researchers and key institutions doing this area of research that you have just found. Then if you scroll down later on during our live demonstration, you can also take a look. There is also a country analysis, so you can see which are the countries that is doing this area of research. For the citation reports, okay, this is the something that you can use to substantiate your perhaps grant or funding application. So if you have identified a set of documents or this research topic, you want to be able to see whether the publication trend is on the rise or whether it's on the decline, so that you can use this chart to justify whether your research will make an impact if it is funded. Okay, so you can use these citation reports to identify trends in publication as well as citations. Now, there are also a few filters that you can identify here. One thing for UKM, you currently do not have access to insights, benchmarking, and analytics and essential science indicators. So you might not be able to see this filter that I'll be showing later on. So these filters help you to identify the cream of the crop of research papers. So highly cited papers are papers that have been published in the past 10 years that have enough citations to put them in the top 1% of their field. Okay, so if you want to find the most important papers to read, okay, highly cited papers would be the filter that you would use. Then you have the hot papers filter. This would help you to identify trending hot papers. Okay, these papers are usually younger, so meaning published in the most recent 2 years or so, and they would have enough citations that put them in the top 0.1% of their field. Okay. Now, the sort functionalities we have on Web of Science can also be used to help you to surface important papers. So we have sort functionalities across things like citation counts, usage, and date. Okay, so usage, when we talk about usage, this is also an additional indicator that you can find for those that are of interest recently. So these papers have been highly utilized in the past 6 months. So it means that researchers have been adding it to their reference list, reference softwares. Researchers have been retrieving the full text. So because of high use, it's also an indication of interest in the topic. Okay. Okay. Then some of you would say, oh, can we get the full text? Okay. So Web of Science is not a full text database, so we do not host the full text papers, but we give you links out to the full text content when available. Okay, so if let's say the full text is free, then there's a free full text link to the publisher. Otherwise, there will be just a full text to the publisher, and it would be dependent on whether the library has a subscription to that journal. Okay. If you have the opportunity, I would also encourage you to download this software, EndNote Click. Okay, this is not to be confused with EndNote, but EndNote Click is a software that you install onto your browser so that when you are browsing through Web of Science, if there is a PDF available, immediately you can click on this View PDF with EndNote Click link and retrieve the full text PDF. Okay. There is also open access filters available for you to look at. So you can filter your content based on open access levels. And you can definitely do a custom list of papers. Okay, so we understand that sometimes for certain topics, you need multiple searches before you can get your full result sets. Okay, so as you do your different search and you want to build this custom data list for yourself, you can use this tool called mark lists, and you can save up to 50 mark lists with up to 50,000 records per list. All right, so take this like custom bookmarks that you can include for Web of Science documents. Okay, so you can mark up the articles and save it as a custom list, and use the same analytics tool that I showed you previously, analyze results and citation reports on this custom data set. Now you can also export this data set to outside of Web of Science. Okay, so you can either export it directly to EndNote or other reference management softwares. And you can also export in plain text or in Excel form. But just take note, there is a limit of exporting 1,000 at a time. So if you want to export, say 13,000 records, you will probably have to export this 14 times. There is also a app available. So in the event that you want to be able to retrieve or search documents on the go, okay, you can download this app called My Web of Science My Research Assistant. You just have to sign up for an account for yourself via the website. So that means access Web of Science through your UKM library portal, and then sign up for your own ID and password, and you will be able to use this app. The other thing that I will also be showing you on the Web of Science demonstration is how you can manage your own researcher profiles. So some of you might already have an existing researcher profile on Web of Science. That's great. So I will show you how you can maintain that profile of yours. And for those who have not claimed a profile either on Publons or Web of Science, you can still claim, I will teach you how to claim your researcher profile if you have published a paper in Web of Science. Okay. Of course, if you've missed out any parts of the training today for the Web of Science researcher profile, you can always scan this QR code and have this link out to the training for claiming your Web of Science researcher profile. All right, so let me see if there's any questions in the chat or the Q&A. Let me see, doesn't look like it. If you have any questions, make sure that you ask them. Take this chance to ask live, okay, so that we can answer them as quickly as we can during this session. Okay, so now I'll take you through the live demonstration. So let me just check. Okay, so you should be seeing the Web of Science platform now. Okay, so to access the Web of Science platform, I think you will be able to get that link from the library. So the library will put in a link for you so that you can sign into either the Open Athens or remote access logins. Okay, and you will be able to access Web of Science. Okay, a few questions are coming in, so let me answer them before I dive into the demonstration. So Nick, you have a question. So sorry, can I know how to check which quartile is a journal indexed in? Yes, that will be answered in a while during the demonstration. You can either use Web of Science or go to Journal Citation Reports to find the journal. Suraya, you have a question. Is Scopus publication necessarily be part of Web of Science? There can be some overlap. So, but ultimately Scopus and Web of Science are two different databases owned by two different companies. The way we select content to be indexed is also different, okay? But there could be some overlap, okay? All right, so let's start the demonstration. So as I mentioned, accessing Web of Science through the library. So the Maria has actually put in a link for all of you. There is a sign in that you need to do. So once you go in there, you should be good to go. Now, once you have logged in via the library with your student ID and you find Web of Science, this is the exact screen that you should be seeing. Okay, so you should see a sign in and a register. Okay, now register is there when you want to either claim your researcher profile or you want to register for the remote access for Web of Science. Okay, so that means if you want your own account to log into Web of Science, you can do a registration. So you just click on register and follow the instructions here. Okay, and you will have a roaming account for 6 months. Okay, so that same ID and password can be used to access the app that I showed you earlier on. Now for browsing, so let's say you just want to search on Web of Science, you can choose not to log in, but because of things like the mark list, safe search, and alerts, I always recommend that you sign in if you can. Okay. So once you have signed in, the system will also register what you have searched and start logging your search histories as well. Okay, so you can see here, I've just logged in with my name and you can see my recent searches. These are all here. Okay, and also my profile. All right. So let's just start with a quick search. Okay. So you can search for either the topic or affiliation, meaning the university. If you just want to pull out UKM papers, you can. But these are all the available fields that you can quickly search. If you need an explanation, you can just hover over it and there's a quick explanation for the field. So let's start with a topic search. I always like to use this example, hydrogen energy. So we can search hydrogen energy. This will give us quite a big number. Okay. The next thing is to use some of these filters on the left to refine the results a bit more. Now, hydrogen energy, when you search this, it can be quite a very broad search. So if you want to narrow things down to make sure that you're identifying the right types of papers, there's this filter called Citation Topics Meso. This is something quite interesting where what we've done is we've taken all the articles and classified them into research topic clusters. So here you will be able to see this search has included papers around the topic of physical chemistry, electrochemistry, catalysts, photocatalysts, and so on. So let's say I am interested in this one, which is hydrogen chemistry and storage. I can limit this result set to just focus on hydrogen and storage. Yeah, so refine. This then brings it down to 10,900. Okay, and from here we can limit either further down by looking at the years of publication or the document type. So maybe I only want to look at a more recent number of years. I can include 2023, 2022, 2018. Okay. So let's say I want to only look at the 5 years. Then I can refine. So now it becomes 3,000 plus in the past 5 years. Now, the next thing I can then do is use the sort functionality. So perhaps I want to identify the most highest cited papers. So because UKM does not have these two filters, you can use the citation scores. So that means you citations highest first. And you have the top citing papers. Then this would be papers that you should consider reading or including into your mark list. So here, if I want to look at this article, I can click into this and I can see the abstract, I can see the keywords, I can also see the full list of authors. If I'm interested to contact the authors, the corresponding author, there is also an email address available. So you can contact that person to discuss perhaps collaborations. Okay. If you have a subscription to Inspect database or any other databases linked within Web of Science, you will also be able to see the Inspect related data on that same document. Okay. You're also able to see who are the funding agencies that have funded this paper. Okay. Now, you were asking about journal information. So when you are looking at this article, the journal information is at the bottom here. There is the latest journal impact factor. And if you click onto this link, which is the journal title, this is where you will see the quartile information. So the quartile information for this journal can be found here. Okay, so you can also click on the journal's name on the top right here. Click, it also opens up this pop-up. Okay. I mentioned about citation network on my presentation slide. So the citation network can be found here on the right-hand side. And if you look at cited references, these are the older papers published before this 2019 ones. So you can click on 140 and you can see the list of references. So the list of references here also includes the citation network of each of the references. Okay, when there's a not available, it would mean that this is not indexed in Web of Science at the moment. Okay, but because we have to list down all the references, we would indicate that it is there. Okay. And you can see EndNote click working here. So say, for example, for this reference, there is a PDF available in terms of full text. Because I've installed EndNote click, I can click on this link and it will retrieve the full text PDF. Okay, and I can then save it into my computer by downloading. Okay, so this is EndNote click. So to install EndNote click, it's at the top right hand side of your screen. So under products, there is EndNote click. You can follow that link and do the necessary registration. Okay. So coming back to the citation network, earlier on I showed you cited references, which is the older papers. Now you can also link out to the newer ones. So these are the 880 citations for this one. So if you click on 880, and this would be the newer papers that have cited this original one you were looking at. Okay. Okay, so let's go back. All right, so this is the citation network. Now, in the event that you want to add this to a custom list, there is an add to marked list option here. You can create a new list or add to unfiled. So unfiled means that I'm still building my list. So I can continue to add to unfiled before I save it as a list. Okay. Now let's go back to the search results. So for Web of Science, there is a breadcrumb available so that you can trace back to what you were doing before. So coming back to this 3,000 plus papers from the past 5 years, I can do some analysis. So under Analyze Results, I can just click here. Then I can look at which are the institutions. Okay, look at affiliations. Institutions that are doing this area of research in the past 5 years. Okay, so you have a chart available. There is also a list in the form of a table. So all in all, there are 1,943 institutes around the world that is doing this research in the past 5 years. And the number of articles that they have published is here under record count. Okay, if you want to take a closer look at any of these sets of papers, you can just select this university and refine results by selected. Then you'll be looking at just the Zhejiang University papers related to this topic. You can also look at countries. So which are the countries here? So you have China in the lead, then US, Turkey, India, Japan, France, and so on. So Malaysia is there as well with 66 documents in this area. Okay. So there are other fields you can analyze. So you can take your time to explore all these different fields. There is funding agencies as well. So you can find out which are the funding agencies that provide funding for this topic. You can also look at titles. So identifying journals to publish in. So if you want to publish research on hydrogen energy storage, you can look at publication titles. And this would be the options for journals from Web of Science that you can submit your paper into. Okay. Now let's go back. You can look at citation report. Okay, so let's look at citation report. So this is where you would see the trend in publications. So because I'm looking at only 5 years, so it'll be here. So it's still relevant, okay, but the increase is not as sharp as before. Okay. Okay, so this is how you start looking for documents. The other thing, the next search that I would demonstrate to you is the search for UKM papers. So if you go to affiliation, you can search for the institution name. Okay, so you find UKM and search. So all in all, for Web of Science, we see 43,000 plus UKM papers. This number might be slightly different from what you're seeing because of the depth of coverage of the years. Okay, I have access quite to 1900, so that's why I see the full coverage years. For UKM subscription, you might be looking at somewhere around 1975 or so. Okay, but there would be some limitations in the number of years of coverage. Okay, so with this 43,000 publications, a few things you can look at. So if you are keen to look at the highly cited papers and hot papers, do reach out to us and we can work on seeing whether we can get a new additional subscription going for ESI so that you can see these two filters. Otherwise, what you can also see here is over all those years, these are your research topics that you are doing a lot of. Okay, but of course, this is based off all years. So if you want to do some analysis, you can actually limit to some publication years. So we can limit to, let's say, these 4 years. So in this 4 years, UKM has published 14,000 plus. And in these 4 years, these are your top research topics: management, thermodynamics, phytochemicals. Okay. These are your researchers. So Prof. Kamaruzaman, Prof. Muhammad Tariku. Okay. All these are your research profiles that you have. And if you can click on their names, you can see their profile in the Web of Science. So this is their researcher ID, and then you can click on View Author Profile to see their full researcher records. Okay. So these are your papers, and you can do some analysis like what I mentioned. So you can click on Analyze Results. Then if you want to know which are the research topics that you're working in, you choose Citation Topics Meso, and this would be your top 10. Okay, so you have management, you have thermodynamics, phytochemicals, wireless technology, education, photocatalysts, and so on. Okay. Then who are your collaborators? You can actually look at under affiliations. So these are UKM collaborators. So you've collaborated with all these different institutions: UPM, UM, USM. Yeah. Then who has funded your research? You can take a look at the funding agencies, and you can see all these are your funders. All right. So the other thing you could also do is the citation reports. But one thing about the citation reports is that you need to reduce the number of records to 10,000. Okay. So usually you would look at the citation report for a smaller set of documents. So say, for example, I only want to know how well am I doing for my management papers. Then I can limit to management, or I can limit it to my phytochemicals. So phytochemicals are here. I can refine. Okay, and then you can run the citation reports. Okay, so for my phytochemicals papers published between 2019 to 2022 from UKM, this is my citation performance. Okay, and these are the individual citations for each paper by year. Okay, so this data set can still be exported, so you can download everything here, the visualization or the full report. Okay. If you want to know who is citing your phytochemicals papers, you can then go into Analyze. So you can click on Citing Articles without self-citations, click on Analyze, and you can see who is citing your phytochemical papers. So you have your own university citing as well, but you have EKB, you have UPM, King Salk University, UM, and all these other institutions that are citing your phytochemical papers. Okay, so that would be searching for your institutional papers. Any questions around these two search functionalities? So searching for the documents by topic and searching by affiliations. There is also a advanced search available. So you can click on advanced search. This would where you want to search for specific fields that you will not able to search for, and these are some of the fields available and what they represent. Or if you want to combine searches, this is where you can combine the data set. So you can include, say, let's look at here. Let's look at this one. So say I want to combine hydrogen energy search. This search I did for hydrogen chemistry and storage, and also UKM. Okay, I can combine these two with a and it will pull up this search here, and I can click on search. So there are 12 papers that fulfill this search criteria, and these are the papers. Okay. And if I want to share this with anyone, I can just simply copy this query link. So there's a copy query link here, and I share it in any chat or email or WhatsApp and so on. Okay. So in any of the searches, you can create alerts as well. So you can create an alert here. And for the search histories are viewable here on the left. So once you've logged in, there will be a search history tab, and you can see your search history is based on dates. Currently, there's no limit. It just goes on and on. Okay. Yeah, so it just goes on and on as long as it's part of your access. Okay, so you have logged in. Okay, so any questions before I go into the researcher search or how to claim your profile?
Hello, madam.
Hi.
Can you recap this on to add on the end not click, please? Thank you.
Okay, so to install EndNote-Click, there's a products list here, products. Go to EndNote-Click. Then you would be brought to this website, just accept the cookies, and then create your EndNote-Click account, and that's it. Okay. So when you do the registration for EndNote-Click, they might ask you for your institution name. So look for University Kebangsaan Malaysia. If it's not in Malay, then it would be in English. National University of Malaysia. Yeah. So you can try this too and see which one comes up. The reason why you have to put in your institution is because it would then start to search for your institutional subscriptions. So if the subscription was available, the PDF would pop up as well. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Ratna, is it free or must pay regularly? So Web of Science Access is definitely free for you as a user of within UKM. Okay, it has been subscribed by the university for you to access. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then let's go to looking for your researchers. So if anyone wants to volunteer your name, so if you know that you have published a paper in Web of Science and you want to try and claim your record, feel free to volunteer your name in the chat and I can search for your name. Otherwise, I will start with organization search for the researchers. So if you go to the researcher search tab, first things first, okay? Remember to register with your most frequently published email address. Okay, so it may not be a UKM email address. It may not be another institution's email address. It's just use the one that you frequently publish with. Okay, and once you have registered for that, then you can search for your name here. There's a last name, first name, and there's also an organization search. Now, author identifier search is when you have an ORCID ID that you have linked, and when you have a researcher ID. But if you have not claimed for your own researcher account, then you might not have a researcher ID yet. So if I search for organization first, I would always use most recent publications, because this would mean that for the latest publications, this researcher's affiliation was mapped to UKM. Okay, so I will search for Kebangsaan again and search. So these are the researchers. So let me show you a claim profile first. So this is Prof. Kamaruzaman's profile. So this green tick would mean that he has claimed his profile, meaning he has maintained this profile for himself. And you can click on his name. And it will open up his profile. So he has included his picture. He's a highly cited researcher. So these are his years of highly cited researcher awards. So congratulations to Prof. Kamaruzaman. He has just been announced to be also the 2022 highly cited researcher in the field of engineering. Okay, and these are his publications. So I think he has quite a large number, 788. So it might take a while to populate. Okay, but it would show up here. Then on the right hand side, this would be all his metrics. You will also be able to see his author impact beam plot. So this is the average performance of all his papers over time, his full career. Okay, and you can see how many % of his publications he is first author, last author, or corresponding author, and you can see his co-authors list. Okay, then if you open up the dashboard, these are his detailed metrics, publications and citations over time, and his full author impact beam plot. Now, this geographic citation map is also interesting because it shows you the influence of his research. So which other countries are citing his work? Okay. So if you click on the to download the data, then it will pop up on the map itself. Okay, so this is the chart, and these are all the citations, where the citations are coming from. Okay. Okay, so that's it. So this is the claim profile. Let's look at an unclaimed profile. So an unclaimed profile is one that has no green tick. So let's say for this person, Prof. Michael, if you want to claim this profile for himself, then he has to sign in with his account. So he has to create one for his own account, and then click on claim my record. So once he has clicked on claim my record, then these 390 will be here, but he needs to carefully verify that these are all written by him. If any one of them are not written by him, he has to unselect the ones that are not his papers before he clicks on submit. Okay, so this curation is important. So I'm not going to do this because these are not my papers. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, then once it has been claimed, this researcher profile will become his permanent researcher ID. So he can then share this with on his profile pages or signature. Okay. So if this is not claimed yet, This is just a temporary researcher ID that cannot be searched. Okay. Now, for the Web of Science researcher profiles, you can also include publications that are not from Web of Science. So to do this, on the left-hand side, there is a menu. You can open this up, and then under Profile, on My Records, then you can actually click on the Add Publications. Okay, and add by identifier. So you can include the DOI of the document. So once you have added this non-Web of Science publication, just take note the citation counts will not appear. It will just appear as a list in your researcher profile. Okay. If you want to edit your pictures, so under my researcher profile, you can edit. Here you can choose your photo. You can include your preferred display name and also your primary organization, because some of you might have multiple affiliations, so you can identify which is your primary organization. You can also set your peer review preferences and your ORCID synchronization. Okay. And that's it. Once you have your profile updated, there is a export CV functionality. So you can export your profile as a CV, and you can select what you want to have appear on your CV. Okay. And that's it. Okay. So before I go into journal citation reports, I'll be happy to answer any questions on Web of Science first. So if you want to type in those questions, feel free to type them into the chat. But if you need further support, okay, there is a resource center here at the bottom right-hand side. Click on that and there will be product updates available. There's also training. So you can click on training, and there's a Web of Science Essentials course. So it's free and self-guided course that you can enroll for. So if you find that my training today was too quick and too brief because of the limited time, you can also use this self-guided course. Okay. So is there any questions for Web of Science? Okay, no. Then I'll take the next 10-15 minutes or so to quickly run through what is the journal citation reports. Okay, let me just go back to my presentation. Okay, so to give you an idea of what the journal citation reports is about, it is a tool for you to make decisions on where to publish. Okay, and the reason is because of the large number of predatory journals out there. Yeah, so to avoid publishing your research into a predatory journal, you need to be able to verify to make sure that they are indeed non-predatory. So what else is better than somebody who is an expert in the field, who is only selecting the best content to be indexed in the Web of Science? So because of the curation process in Web of Science, you are able to trust the information that you see in Web of Science as well as the journal citation reports. So the journal citation reports gives you objective, unbiased journal statistics so that you can make better decisions on where to publish your paper. And there is a transparent way of calculations. So let's say, for example, there are journal impact factors for the journals. The calculation and how it has been derived will be clearly listed on the journal's profile pages on the journal citation reports. Okay, so as its name suggests, journal citation reports is an annual report that is only released in June each year. So the latest report is a 2022 report, but the journal impact factor is a 2021 journal impact factor. Okay. Okay. Now, on the journal citation reports, we have about 21,430 journals that you can look at. So of course, these are the journals that are also on Web of Science, and it covers the science, social science, arts and humanities, and ESCI journals. And just take note that the journals do not just stay on the list forever. Okay, we do suppress some journals as well, so just be careful. Okay, I will show you where you can find a list of journals that have been removed from the list later on. Okay, so let me go into journal citation reports. Okay, I think there was somebody, Dania, you have asked for a link to the self-guide training. Okay, let me open this up and put that in here. Okay, so this is the link that you can go to for the self-help course. Okay, so to access journal citation reports, you can go from Web of Science as well. So you can go to Products, Journal Citation Reports. Okay, so let me just accept all. It looks a bit small. Let me zoom in. Okay, so this you can use journal citation reports to verify and see whether a journal is indexed in Web of Science. So all you need to do is just type in the journal's name, International Journal of Hydrogen Energy. Okay, so if the journal exists, then you can see that there's one result, and you can click on the journal's name and you come to the journal's profile page. So every journal will have their own unique profile page, and you can see the related indicators and details, things like the journal impact factor and the journal citation indicator. Now, the journal citation indicator is a new indicator that we introduced last year that tells you whether a journal is performing above or below average in its field. Okay, so for this journal, it is at 0.95. So any number that is, the average JCI is always 1. So if it's below 1, it means it's slightly below average. If it's above 1, it's performing above average for its field. Okay, so just be careful, because I think most people would still be more familiar with journal impact factor. But because we have introduced journal citation indicator, there is now 2 quartile rankings. Okay, so there's quartile for journal impact factor and quartile for JCI. So the quartile that we are always referring to is currently still only the journal impact factor quartile. Okay, so just take note. So you can see other data here, things like open access data. If you need some support on what each of these means, there is always an information button here to guide you. So, but when I talk about the quartiles, this is where it will appear. So there's rank by journal impact factor. So this is a Q2 journal. Then for JCI, this is also a Q2 JCI journal. Okay. So this is the journal's profile page. Have a look when you have the time to look around. Okay. But the next thing that I wanted to show you is how you can download a list of journals for your own specialization. So you can browse by categories. And we have some sections here. We have groupings here. So if you are in, say, engineering, there are 41 engineering categories. Say, for example, you are in biomedical engineering. You select that specialization, and you would see these 2 lines. So there's under editions, there's SCIE. SCIE means this is under Science Citation Index Expanded, and these are those that have a journal impact factor. ESCI are those journals that are in this same category, but they don't have a journal impact factor because they are in ESCI. So if you only want those journals that are in that have a journal impact factor, always choose the ones that are in this in SCIE or SSCI. Okay, so you can select this 98, click on 98. And this would be the 98 journals with a journal impact factor. Then the indicators that you can look at by default is the journal impact factor and journal impact factor quartile and JCI. Another useful indicator that you can look at is the percentage of articles in citable items. Okay, now this one is useful, for example, when you want to find out whether a journal publishes more reviews or articles. So when we calculate the journal impact factor, the citable items that we include are articles and reviews. Okay, so just remember, articles plus reviews equals citable items in JCR. So if we have a 92% or 98%, okay, 98% articles in citable items, it means that this journal publishes 98% of its content as articles. So if you are writing a review paper, should you submit your article here? Should you submit your paper here? Probably not, because the chances of being published will be much lower. Okay, because it only publishes, out of 100 papers, it only publishes 98 articles. It will publish 98 articles and 2 reviews. Okay, so this is something that you can consider looking at. And to add this as a indicator, there's a customized functionality, and this is where you can choose the percentage of articles in citable items for the table. Okay, you can download this under export for up to 600 lines. Okay, so make sure that you are only limiting it to 600 journals per list. You can also use the filters on the left. So I know that some of you might want to be able to identify the top 10% journals. So under the filters here, you can use the GIF percentile. And you put 90 to 100. So that will be your top 10% journals. So there are 10 journals here, and these are the top 10% journals in biomedical engineering. Okay. And that's it. So the journal citation reports, we can always do a more in-depth training later on to go through the different indicators if that is of interest to all of you. But for today's session, it is more like a flavor to let you know how you can quickly identify those journals and retrieve the information. So you can browse by categories. You can also browse by publisher. So sometimes you might want to know which are the journals covered for IEEE or Springer Nature or Wiley. Then you can go to browse by the publisher. You can also browse by country. So which are the journals in Malaysia, for example. So you can have Malaysia. Okay, so there's a country here with 81 journals. So you can click on that and list down the 81. Okay, so these are the 81 journals from Malaysia. And that's it. Okay, so we do have some time and I wanted to definitely leave some time for questions so that I can clarify any parts that you couldn't really catch or understand from both Web of Science and journal citation reports. Okay, I'm going to put in my email address into the chat. So in the event that you have any questions after this after looking around the two platforms, you can always drop me an email so that I can assist you. Okay. If you have questions with like merging your researcher ID or merging your researcher profiles, you can drop an email to our support team, wasg.support@clarivate.com. Okay, I've put that into the chat already. All right. So, any questions? Let me turn on my camera. Okay, any questions from the audience that I can help answer? I think you can unmute yourself as well. Any questions? If you have no more questions, then I think let me see. Is there any anything that they need to sign for their attendance from the library? Okay, if not, then for those who have no questions, then I'll await your email. All right, so back to you. Thank you.
I think there's a question.
Is there?
From
Wait,
Suraya Ramli.
Yeah. It just came in. What's the average time taken to publish in who? So average time taken to publish, it depends on the journal that you choose to submit to. So the publication timings really depends on the journal. The index timing, on the other hand, usually it's as quickly as when the publisher send us the raw files to be indexed in Web of Science. Web of Science is updated on a daily basis. So as soon as the raw data is given to us, we put it in the right format, it should be updated fairly quickly. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Suraya.
Okay.
Anyone else wants to unmute yourself to ask also can. There's no attendance needed, right, for attendance taking?
We have given the link.
Okay. Okay.
Right. I think that's all. There's no question more.
Sure.
All right. Thank you so much, Dju-Lyn.
No problem. Thank you
So
very
much
much,
for sharing
Amira.
with us.